Welcome everyone. I'm Saket Bansal and I'm your host for today's webinar, and we have intent to talk about roles and responsibility of Safe Scrum Master. We will explore basically with the help of Scaled Agile website. This is how from their default website presentation the role of Scrum Master look like in the Scaled Agile framework. But before we get into the details of the role of a Scrum Master, we probably need to have a foundational agreement or an understanding about what is safe and how, like overall context in which the Scrum Master operate in safe. So the good way of learning that is understanding safe Scrum, because Scrum is used in a particular way in safe. And the Scrum Master role is to make sure the safe Scrum works well and my team is collaborating well with other Scrum teams so that we can achieve the overall objective as a big agile release train. Yeah, so that's something we are learning. We will go through all these 5 parameters, the 5 wheel of safe Scrum Master / team coach responsibility. We'll go through it. But before that, little bit introduction of safe, and then we directly come here. Yeah. In between, whenever you have a query, feel free to raise hand or unmute yourself and we get started with that particular conversation. Yeah. Okay. So the basic assumption we need to make is that if you have agile teams, yeah, you don't need to use SAFe. You can work with independent Scrum team provided the Scrum team can provide independent delivery to their end users. They can release their product on an incremental manner. You don't need SAFe in that context. But the uses of state, at least the essential SAFe starts when you want to club these team as a one unit. Yeah, 5 to 12 agile teams, you club them as a one unit and you create something called a bigger unit. We call it Agile Release Train. So in a basic manner, we can understand that the role of a Scrum Master is at a team level. So each agile team will have their Scrum Master. There is a possibility one Scrum Master may be helping two agile teams, but we can say that agile team will have their own Scrum Master or an agile coach or a team coach, the word they use. And this person is taking care of more or less the team level facilitation, team level growth, team level alignment towards the common purpose. And they are also ensuring that we are collaborating well with each other because we are part of a same agile release train. In case of SAFe, there are some more responsibility which are directly at a train level. You have things like release train engineer, product management, business owners, few more, but the role of a Scrum Master is more focused at a team level. So one thing I want to stress upon, in case of safe way of working, agile teams are part of a bigger community. We call it Agile Release Train. So yes, they do many team level work, but they are part of a bigger thing. What is the meaning of it? They have a bigger goal. They have a backlog which directly is at a train level. And then they have a specific backlog which comes at the team level. So by this, we should understand two things by now: Agile team and Agile Release Train. Yeah. Any comment till here? If this is understood, then I take it forward. Yeah. In a safe way of working, we work in a bigger time box of something called planning interval. So the way we have a small sprints, in a safe, we have a big sprint. Yeah, in a way, big time box. You call it sprint, you call it iteration, but it's a big thing. And that big thing is called planning interval. Now, by default, the explanation purpose, I use a duration of 10 weeks, but it could be anything between 8 to 12 weeks. Yeah. So if you talk about SAFe, the term PI will come, and this is the term PI is planning interval. And by default, I can say it's a 10 weeks window. So in SAFe, we are operating our work as a full agile release train in the time box of PI. Yeah, that's a bigger way of working. And this whole PI is divided into 2 weeks sprints, or they call them iterations. So the execution of the work at a team level will get done at a 2 weeks interval. So we will have a smaller time box also. We call it iteration, and we have a bigger time box, which is called the PI in case of safe way of working. Now, there are few plannings which are done at a bigger level, a planning interval level, and there are other planning which are done at an iteration level. Now, why we are discussing it? Because we want to understand how Scrum operates in SAFe, and basically you can understand Scrum will operate here. Yeah. So SAFe Scrum will operate in the two-week cycles for each agile team. So each agile team will be operating their own two-week cycles. And there the role of a Scrum Master will become more critical. But at the same time, you can understand the Scrum Master has to play a role at a bigger train level as well as a PI level. So 4 things we have covered till now: Agile team, Agile Release Train, PI, which is a planning interval, and the 4th one is iteration. Yeah? So iterations is a subset or a subdivision of a big PI. And by default, I can say we have a 5 iteration if you are running a 10 weeks of planning interval. Out of these 5 iterations, the final iteration is little special, and we call it innovation and planning iteration. So it is like a special iteration which is designed to do some amount of planning and cleaning up work for the previous iteration. You can assume this as a bridge iteration. It does a lot of work for upcoming PI, and it also does some kind of cleaning work for the previous PI. So we take a kind of bridge zone or a transitioning zone where we can say, let's fix and demonstrate what we have achieved in our previous PI, and let's plan and get ready for upcoming PI. So it's a special set of activities where we don't focus on doing development activities. We don't plan to do it. There could be exceptions. We are more focusing on cleaning up our previous mess or maybe some pending work, and spending some time for an innovation, and spending time for getting ready for upcoming PI. And that thing is called preparation for PI planning meeting. So we have a PI, and this PI is divided into multiple iteration, and the last iteration is called innovation and planning iteration. Yeah. Any question, comment till here? I know the role of a Scrum Master is yet to start, but a little bit of common understanding before we get into the details.
So, Sacled, INP comes after the PI planning, just the planning or the actual sprints?
Okay, so it is like you can say 10-week window, and the week 9 and week 10 is innovation planning. Yeah. Now there is a trick. Inside the innovation and planning iteration, we do PI planning meeting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And this is for the next PI. So here we have a PI planning meeting. And what is PI planning meeting? PI planning meeting is where whole train come together, which means all 125 people come together and they plan for upcoming PI. So it's like that, as I said, in innovation and planning iteration, you do some cleanup work for previous innovation PI, and you plan for upcoming PI. So I plan my next PI in the 10th week of current PI duration. Yeah. So you can say the last 2 weeks are innovation and planning iteration. And during the last few days of innovation and planning iteration, we finish the innovation and planning iteration by doing planning for upcoming PI. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, got it.
Yeah. So a little bit more about PI planning meeting now. Yeah. So thanks to the question, and I also try to make this use of it. So we understand that the SAFe has a 2 time box now. One is PI and another is iteration. You get it. And hopefully you all understand Scrum pretty well. So since we have a 2 time box, we need to have a 2 level of planning as well. We need to have a 2 level of, say, tracking, if I use the word, 2 level of working. One is a PI level working and another is a two weeks level working, iteration level working. So we need these 2 kind of structure. So in order to support that, in a safe way of working, we need to have a joint meeting, which we call a PI planning meeting. By default, in a SAFe literature, it is explained as a 2 days meeting. In a real world, it may happen in a 3 half days, 4 half days, but this is a combined meeting where the complete release train come together and they set up their goal for upcoming PI as a big family, as a big unit of 10 teams. They set up the goal for upcoming PI. Yeah. Now, in order to do that, little bit background story before PI planning meeting, there is a process of continuous refinement of train level backlog. So in a SAFe word, we have a content requirements which are directly done at a train level. And there is a continuous refinement happening. And that process for doing that refinement is tracked with the help of ART Kanban board. Now I am presenting it here, but you can assume that this thing is happening all the time. It is not a one-time activity. It is happening all the time. So in each PI, when my teams are working on their current iterations, my set of people are planning for upcoming PI and they are refining the content and the plan will emerge. So by the time we reach to a PI planning meeting, they have a latest refined requirement for upcoming PI. Yeah. So there is a PI level or a train level refinement happening. And this train level refinement is done by train level role. And there is a role called product management here. And product management, you can consider it as a requirement guy who is working very closely with the business stakeholders and ensuring the requirements are getting well refined. And ultimately, this whole refinement lead to a well-refined backlog, yeah, for upcoming PI. And that backlog is a common for the whole Agile release train. And this particular backlog is called ART backlog, yeah, which is managed by product management and continuously refined. And this goes as an input to a PI planning meeting so that teams can plan the work as a one big family for the upcoming PI. Yeah, so this is a super high level explanation before I start the role of a Scrum Master. Yeah, so you get there is a big backlog, which is a ART backlog. You get that there is something called PI planning meeting. You understand that there are two levels of time boxes, PI level time box and the iteration level time box. And iteration level time box, I can say the team is focusing on getting their part of work done. PI level time box, we have a bigger goal, which we set in our PI planning meeting, and we do it jointly for complete Agile release train. Yeah. Any question, comment till here?
Just a quick question about the duration of the iterations. We are saying it's going to be 2 weeks. Is SAFe strict about that, or does it leave it up to the team to decide on the sprint iteration length?
So in general, their content is talking about 2 weeks, but they do use a word typically 2 weeks. So in a way, you can go for 3 weeks also in case you want. Yeah, you can figure out in retrospect. But when we by default, if we get started or we look at their content, the explanation always is with the help of 2 weeks. Yeah.
I understand. Thank you.
Yeah. So, but then added a typical word now. Yeah. But again, I have seen many safe running organization running 3-week iterations as well, depending upon their context, how it operates for them. Yeah. Good. Go ahead. Go ahead. What do you think? Yeah.
Hi, Sacled. So, can you please clarify again on the part where the art backlog is primarily prioritized and rule to be taken for consideration for the upcoming period? Did not get that part.
So there was a little echo in your voice. Try to repeat and see if you can do something about that.
Yeah, am I clear now?
Better. Go ahead. Yeah.
So I wanted to get clarification on how the art backlog, which is used in the PA planning, is groomed and prioritized to take decisions on the upcoming PI, backlogs or
Perfect.
PI
Perfect.
items.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, we can talk about that a little bit. Yeah. So to start with, the role of Scrum Master there is less. Yeah, that's the little bit starting point. But in a safe way of working, we have some stakeholders who are working directly at a train level. And for a requirement ownership, there is a role called product management. It could be a more than one person, and this person is responsible for getting the ART backlog ready. For that, we manage a Kanban board. So you may have a funnel stage where all the new ideas which are candidate for this train may come in a funnel stage. Then they may put an analyzing stage where they periodically put a meeting. So there is no prescribed frequency for the meeting from a scaled agile framework, but you can find out your own frequency of way of working, but they prescribe that do manage a Kanban board for it. Yeah. So you have a funnel stage, you have an analyzing stage, and you make sure that features, which are coming as an idea in a refined idea, like initially a rough ideas, pass through this whole process and get well refined as a feature having acceptance criteria. So in analyzing stage, so now starting from one by one, in a safe word, they call a little higher level of requirement than user story a term feature. So feature is a big say, just for an explanation purpose, a work of 40 to 100 days, something like that. Yeah. And one feature may get divided into 10 to 20 user stories later on. So it is a big thing which is sensible for business users. It produces some kind of tangible functionality. It has some kind of benefit associated with it. So that kind of requirement, they call it feature, and they tell that each feature should have a benefit assumption or an expected benefit. That specific term they use, benefit hypothesis. And each feature passes through an analyzing stage where we add acceptance criteria to it. So it is not our generic agile epic, which is just a container. It is a well-refined requirement, but at a higher level. So each feature is expected to have an acceptance criteria also, which you do incrementally when you take into the analyzing stage. And once you add acceptance criteria and well-refine the feature, then it can goes to ART backlog. So ART backlog, in case of safe way of working, contains well-refined feature. It is not like wish list. It is not like you are equivalent to your product backlog. It should not have more than 10, 15 items. Something which you can do in upcoming PI. Tentatively, you are planning to do in upcoming PI is the thing which comes into the ART backlog. Now, in order to support that process, in a safe way of working, there are other roles who are associated, and there is a critical role called business owner, which is like a key stakeholders. We also need to involve somebody called system architect who understand the technology and sizing of the work. And then we are also involving team level requirement guy. In a safe word, though, that person is called product owners. So our team means small agile team, is expected to have their product owners. Yeah. So these product owners are also involved when the product management is leading the activities of refining the ART level features. Now, once the refinement is done, ideally, maybe 1 or 2 weeks before PI planning meeting. So if we are running a PI for 10 weeks, somewhere here, we should be ready. Yeah, we should be ready with our proposed backlog for upcoming PI. So this is a time we do. If for an explanation purpose, I can use 7 weeks time. We have used it. We are still left with the 3 weeks to have a PI planning meeting. So we should be ready with our ART backlog by that time for upcoming PI. And now here, the SAFe has a specific way of doing prioritization, but we can say we use a value-based prioritization, value divided by size-based prioritization. And they use a specific term for that without going into the complication of it. They call it WSJF. Yeah. So we can simply say till here, our agile teams are not involved. Agile teams are doing their job. They are busy doing their part of the work. But someone 1 week before the PI planning, 1 week before the innovation and planning meeting, maybe 3 weeks before the PI planning meeting, with the help of business owners, system architect, and product owners, they prioritize and propose that these are the features we are expected to take in a PI planning meeting. Yeah. So this is how the overall process of getting backlog ready for upcoming PI planning meeting happens. Yeah. Anything else till here? And we are getting into Scrum Master role after we start the PI planning thing. Yeah.
Saket, I have two follow-up questions, quick questions. My first question is that this refined backlog items or the feature requirements which gets groomed for the upcoming PA planning. So let's consider a scenario. Suppose say there are two teams where there are two product owners. One product owner is actually trying to implement the sales functionality of a product, while the second team is trying to implement the service functionality of a product. So, and they also have got their individual set of backlog items to be discussed for the upcoming iteration. Now, are you saying that this particular odd backlog would be a combined list of both the sales and the service features?
Yes. So we can say that the ART backlog is a combined list for the whole train. And it may be shareable. There is a possibility one item may get distributed to two teams. And exactly who will do what, we will figure it out in a PI planning meeting. Exactly. So final agreement on who does what will get figured out for upcoming PI in a PI planning meeting. We'll see that together. And you can say, since you may have a different product owners who are working with the different teams, you have an integrator for requirement, and there is a special role. You can call it a product management role, or they call it product manager also, who is expected to ensure that we talk to each other and we have a common understanding about our overall priority. There is a possibility maybe one stakeholder is pulling for one side dimension of the product, another stakeholder is say asking for another dimension of the product, and they may have a conflict around that, but that's a possibility. But the product management role is to facilitate, make sure people collaborate, and then they talk about what should be there for our upcoming PI planning meeting. And that's the process of making the ART backlog ready for upcoming PI planning meeting.
Okay, and my last follow-up question related to the ART backlog, Saket, is that when you mention about the acceptance criteria, so this acceptance criteria would be following the definition of ready, for the list of the items
You
which
can
would
make
become.
that. So
Okay.
no mandatory artifact as a definition of ready, but if it helps you to do a better PI planning meeting for your work, then you can definitely have a train level, ART level definition of ready for your ART backlog items. There is a no must or not thing, but the only recommendation which SAFe tells is you need to make sure the ART backlog item, which is expected to come in the upcoming PI planning meeting, is well refined, should have a benefit hypothesis, should have acceptance criteria attached to it, should be sized in a way so that we tend to deliver the whole feature in a one PI. Yeah, so that's a default definition of ready from SAFe, that feature should be small enough so the train can plan end-to-end of the feature in an upcoming PI. The feature should have a well-refined acceptance criteria so that we know it is done or not done. And the feature should have a business value or business benefit expectation attached to it. So that's a default one. But further to it, for example, you want to make sure the feature must have a wireframe ready with it, feature must have dependency resolved with it, feature must have a test data available with it. If you have those kind of needs, just to improve your PI planning and future predictability for upcoming PI, no harm in adding those things, but not mandated because it's a context-driven thing. Good.
Thank you, Saket.
So recapping, I see some of you joining. We have yet to start the role of a Scrum Master. So what we have explored, that in a SAFe, the Scrum teams or Agile, we call them Agile teams, are the part of bigger community. We call them Agile Release Train. Yeah, that's a first reminder. Second reminder, in a SAFe way of working, the Scrum, the 2 weeks iteration, we call them iteration rather than sprint, is a part of a bigger time box, which we call it planning interval. So we have a big PI planning, PI, which is a 10-week window, and inside it we run iterations. Yeah, so our SAFe Scrum will be guided by the PI level thing. Now for this big PI, the PI of this thing, we are representing as a 2 time box window. We also do a common planning meeting, which is called PI planning meeting, where the whole community of our Agile Release Train, which means all 100+ people who are part of the train participate. And in that PI planning meeting, they plan for the work for upcoming PI. Means each team plans at a high level, not a very detailed level, not at a sprint planning level, but at a high level. You can relate to your old release planning level. So stories, velocity-driven planning, if I'm using the Scrum terminology. So each team does the velocity-driven planning for the upcoming PI, and they have a tentative plan for each and every sprint by which they can say, this is the work we are going to do in upcoming PI. And this whole thing happens in a PI planning meeting, and that is done collaboratively, and we are taking input as a ART backlog, which is a special backlog, which contain a requirement element. We call them feature. There is another element also which is called enabler, but I'm keeping it a little away for the sake of keeping things simple. Yeah, there are more complexity attached, but just for a simplicity sake, we can say there is a backlog which is called ART backlog, and it contains a requirement element which is called feature. And it is refined by the people who are at a train level. They're common people. They are not related to particular team. And these common people have a leader for a requirement refinement called product management, and they work with key stakeholders. They have system architect, and they also engage the team level product owners for doing the, say, detailed understanding of the acceptance criteria for each and every feature. Yeah, so this is like a super high level explanation for ART backlog, PI, and the iterations inside it. Yeah, so we start with that. Yeah, and now let's get into the action. So Our primary focus today is a role of a Scrum Master. And we learned the Scrum Master is a person who is working with the Agile team. Now, when my teams are expected to participate in a PI planning meeting, so we learned all of us will go to a PI planning meeting here. Yeah? And we are doing something called innovation and planning iteration, which will help us in doing preparation for PI planning meeting. My first role as a Scrum Master is usually tentatively what is my team expected to do in upcoming PI, yeah, which means what kind of features are expected to get done by my team will tentatively get allocated before we go for PI planning meeting. Why I'm using a word tentatively? Because the final decision is a common decision which needs to be seen in the holistic manner. So we can't say it's a final thing, but we do know most likely these are the features will get done by us. Now, how do we know about it? Maybe based on the team's capacity, maybe based on team's product owner experience, interest, some logic. SAFe is not defining that logic. You need to have that logic. So based on your understanding of how we work as Agile Release Train, you have an understanding that this kind of feature will go there, this kind of feature will go there. So you have some understanding there. So based on that, the team, the product owner primarily, get to know that these are the features we'll expect it to come 2 weeks later in our PI planning meeting. Now, as a Scrum Master, I need to make sure my team prepares well for PI planning meeting. Yeah. So what does it mean? Ensuring the product owners and the team members are doing well due diligence by talking about those features. I need to ensure these features are sufficiently getting splitted into user stories. My team is working and doing some exploration to find out what all dependencies are there. And if there are some dependencies are emerging, I need to ensure we work with other teams to develop an agreement on those dependencies. If I do this job well, I will support the execution of PI planning meeting, because PI planning meeting will become more predictive because you will know things which you are planning there. A lot of dependencies are resolved in advance, and it can increase the overall quality of PI planning meeting. So my role is I need to facilitate the 1 week before, and we call it innovation and planning iteration. I need to facilitate that activity for the readiness of PI planning meeting. Yeah. Another thing which I need to make sure as a Scrum Master during this duration, I should have a clarity about what kind of capacity we can plan for upcoming PI. Who also are taking leaves, probably some mechanism. Now, exactly, we are not saying that you need to collect the leave calendar and all, but some way as a Scrum Master for my team, I should be able to forecast that upcoming 4 iteration, this is going to be our capacity. As a Scrum Master, looking at a historical data, I should be also able to work with my team to forecast what kind of velocity we can plan for upcoming iterations. Now, if we don't do all this, if as a Scrum Master, I'm going without all this preparation, then we will take more time and we will create more unpredictable plan in a PI planning meeting. So summarization, as a Scrum Master, I make my team ready for PI planning meeting. And in order to make them ready for PI planning meeting, I ensure they are putting sufficient detail, sufficient attention to upcoming features which are expected to come to them. Yeah, that's the first thing. I ensure that product owner and the team are spending good time refining the product or the backlog which is expected to come to them, means dividing the feature into small user stories. I ensure the dependencies are identified and resolved. I ensure that my capacity planning for upcoming PI is done. And I ensure that we also take historical data in account in order to ensure that we have a, like say, realistic estimation for upcoming PI velocity forecast. So I need to do all this, else I will not be able to support my team in doing the better PI planning meeting. Yeah. So I help my team to get ready for PI planning meeting. And during that helping, I may also coordinate with other Scrum Masters, other Agile teams, to have some agreement on the dependency which we have on each other during that particular duration. So that's the first activity in a realistic manner. We can go save jargons and all, but that's something which is not there in Scrum in a way, because the whole setup of PI is not there. So as a Scrum Master, that's an additional thing in the safe way of working that I need to get my team ready for PI planning meeting. Yeah. The second thing, the actions inside the PI planning meeting. Yeah. Since it's a new meeting, if I compare with the generic Scrum and the safe Scrum, I need to care for it. So yes, PI planning is a big topic. It takes in our leading safe class. Some of you are joining this Saturday, you know we will spend minimum 2 hours in the PI planning. But I have a detailed 7 videos in our YouTube channel explaining the PI planning meeting. But to summarize the role of a Scrum Master, inside the PI planning meeting, we will do many breakout sessions. And in the breakout session, whatever preparation we have done for our PI planning meeting, we need to ensure that is fitting well with other agile teams. So as a Scrum Master, my role is very critical that during those breakout sessions, I facilitate the work well. I ensure dependencies and risks are well identified. And I also work with other agile teams so that we can integrate that work. In a safe way of working, we have a bigger facilitator, like we have a requirement guy here, product management. We have a facilitator role also at a senior level. You can call it a train level rather than senior level. And that person is called release train engineer. It's like a chief Scrum Master, super Scrum Master, whatever name you will give it. It's a Scrum Master of Scrum Master. So release train engineer is the one who will run the PI planning meeting. But all of us who are Scrum Master with our team, we coordinate and facilitate work with the release train engineer so that we ensure that at the end of a PI planning meeting, each team comes up with a clear understanding of what they are expected to do in the upcoming PI. So I need to facilitate breakout session. I need to facilitate identification and resolution of risks. I need to facilitate identification of dependency and resolving those dependency for a planning purpose for upcoming PI during the PI planning meeting. And I also help the release train engineer to come up with a good facilitated session for the achievement of coming up an agreement as a PI planning, as a whole PI objective. And I also need to ensure that at the end, we have an integrated plan, which means each team plan come together and fit well for the whole train plan for upcoming PI. And this is something I do inside the PI planning meeting. As a particular artifact, at the end of a PI planning meeting, each team is expected to come up with, we call it a PI objective. So you can say portion of ART backlog will be divided to one team, say team A. The another portion of ART backlog will be divided to another team. And they will make a business level summary based on their identification of number of user story in that item, identification of story points of it. They already have an estimated velocity for upcoming PI, and judging the stories and velocity at that level, they come up with a projected plan or a projected commitment, and you can say, and that thing is called team level PI objective. So each team will come up with a team level PI objective, which is a summary level statement. And along with that, the team will also come up with a detailed understanding of a set of user stories, which are a child of those features expected to get done in upcoming PI in order to achieve PI objective. So team also come up with a detailed backlog, a local backlog, which will be a local for each team, which is connected to ART backlog. And this backlog is called team backlog. Though the product owner plays a critical role, the product owner who is here plays a critical role working closely with the team to make sure the features are well getting distributed in the form of user stories. But as a Scrum Master, I need to facilitate that, yes, we have a fair understanding of our PI objective. The product owner and the team has spent good time analyzing the expected user story coming in those PI objective. They have a sufficient due diligence done. They have done sufficient estimation for those user stories. They have identified the dependencies well. So I'm facilitating. I'm making sure they are putting enough attention, not too much, not too less, so that when they come up with the PI objective, it is predictable, it is really achievable. And I ensure that the results as a documentation result, we capture them, we put them into a proper artifact as a PI objective at a team level, and also make sure that team level backlog get created. Now, unlike Scrum, in Safe Scrum, your input is not product backlog. In a Scrum, you have a product backlog, you do sprint planning, and you take the work and do the work all the time. And product backlog is ever growing. In case of Safe Scrum, your input for your iteration is this backlog, which is called team backlog. And you can say the team backlog is highly influenced by your PI planning process. It contains all the items which team will do. We call them small items as a user story, which will help the team in achieving their PI objectives. Yeah, it can have some local improvement work also, some kind of automation work, some kind of innovation work that's possible. But overall, say majority of the content of the team backlog help the team in achieving the PI objective. So this becomes a replacement of product backlog in case of safe way of working. The safe Scrum takes input of team backlog as each iteration. So whenever we are doing iteration planning meeting, the team backlog is the input. And high-level planning, which we have done for each iteration, velocity-driven planning, is sequenced and stored in a team backlog, and the product owner will continuously keep refining it in the PI duration. So product owner, who is local guy, will keep refining it all the time, which means that on a weekly basis or once in an iteration, we will have a refinement meeting, which is refining this local team backlog, because not everything is well refined during PI planning meeting, like acceptance criteria and all those things. So they will come along as we go inside the iteration. So I take a pause and clarify and reiterate the two bigger things, which are pretty much different from a typical Scrum Master role in a SAFe. So first thing is getting my team ready for PI planning meeting, the content ready, the capacity planning ready, the dependencies ready, the review of the previous history ready, and taking proper forecast for upcoming PI. So I get ready my team. Then inside the PI planning meeting, I ensure my team collaborate well, participate well, follow the time backs. I ensure I work well with other Agile teams, other Scrum teams, other Scrum Masters. We integrate our plan. I collaborate with the release train engineer, and we ensure that we achieve a clarity and each team comes up with their part of a goal. We call it team level PI objective. And in detail, they also have a backlogs, which will stories and estimated user stories, which help us in achieving that team backlog. So I ensure my product owner is refining them well in a PI planning meeting, and we put that as a starting team backlog for each PI, and we refresh our current team backlog with the newly identified PI objectives, and I ensure that they are well maintained. And this becomes as an input for my upcoming iterations inside the PI execution. Any question, comment till here? I know it's a little complicated. Good till here?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. So now I can say the safe Scrum can get started. Yeah, now we can start the safe Scrum. So I can go to Scaled Agile Framework and we can say, let's click safe Scrum now. We can probably use this diagram to understand how the safe Scrum operates. So this is how we can say the safe Scrum operates inside the safe, and probably we'll take a reference of a Scrum Master role as we go along. So we have based on PI objective, we prepared our team backlog. Now, team backlog we can consider as a substitute of product backlog. They vary in nature significantly, but for a mechanics of Scrum, it's a substitute of product backlog in case of a Scrum, traditional Scrum versus safe Scrum. So in this cycle is representing by default the 2-week thing. So typical word, yeah, so typically 2 weeks. Yeah, so I'm just saying 2 weeks as a typical duration. So in the beginning of that 2 weeks time box cycle, we check our team backlog. And as we learned, the team backlog is getting continuously refined. But maybe if you're in a first iteration, we look at a team backlog jointly and we do equivalent like a sprint planning meeting, only we do iteration planning meeting. So in the iteration planning meeting, like our sprint planning meeting, I as a Scrum Master need to facilitate. So more or less same like typical Scrum job. So I need to make sure that we are putting the right requirements, we are doing due diligence, we are estimating enough. And as a result of it, we are coming up with iteration goal and iteration backlog. So you call it sprint backlog in a Scrum word. So we are also coming up with the output call sprint goal is a iteration goal and a sprint backlog is a iteration backlog. So more or less the same thing. The goal of iteration planning is to produce iteration goal and the iteration backlog. The only difference is iteration goals should be in well alignment with the PI objective. Yeah. So you already have a PI objectives defined in a PI planning meeting. You have a team backlog which will help you in achieving that PI objective. And you want to make sure that iteration goals are contributing, taking step forward towards PI objective. Go ahead, Irfan. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry for interrupting.
No problem.
What I learned is actually there are 3 types, right? One is for large, one is portfolio and one is, I think one more is essentials, right? So this one is applicable for all the three, or is it applicable only for the initial essentials for that?
Okay, so see, why I reduce the complication of not talking about safe configuration, because the role of Scrum Master happens at a bottom level. But since you got this question, so I can show a little bit about it. And before we move, so say safe is a little complicated framework, and it has a solution. One is called essential. The essential solution is everywhere. Whatever solution you apply, essential is essential. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. And at an essential level, the work happens. So whatever we have learned, it is happening at an essential level. The role of Scrum Master is also basically at an essential level. So which means essential level tells how the trains operate, how the trains are expected to do PI planning meeting, how they collaborate with each other, and the Scrum Master role, which is a team level role, will work at a train level as well. So that's an essential. Now in a safe word, there are other configurations also. They are saying if you have a situation where 100 people working together is not enough, yeah, you need to make 500 people working together. So what they do, they tell run multiple trains, and then we will have a managing committee or a steering committee, some kind of coordinator, which are at a multi-team level. So that thing they call large solution. They are saying we will have some additional roles, additional than what we discussed, additional role. We call them solution train engineer, solution management and all. And this additional role will have an additional backlog, not ART backlog, something at common backlog for multiple train. And they will feed to a train, and then train will operate in a similar way. Yeah. So ultimately train will operate in a similar way, which we are learning. That's a large solution. Now, similarly, they have another layer called portfolio. The portfolio talks about that don't randomly start, oh, we have an idea, we want to put a feature here. Have a proper evaluation of business idea first. And we want to see which idea should be invested and which idea should not be invested. We will do some kind of business justification review for it. We can say, okay, do it. For that, they add additional roles, additional processes, additional backlog, additional Kanban board. And that Kanban board contain super level requirement, which they call epic. And once epic is approved, they go to a same train. Yeah? So the train input will be ART Kanban board. The input can be connected. If you are using only essential, there is no connector. Directly input is coming to ART backlog and you are starting. Yeah. So your ART backlog is the starting point. If you have a large solution, then input is coming from the bigger group. The committee is giving me the work, and then I will start similar way. If I have a portfolio, then I will have a business justification coming in, and then only I will get started. Yeah. So that kind of interventions are there. And the full safe includes all the layers. Yeah. So yes, it's a little confusing. But ultimately, our job is same. Execution happens, whatever we are discussing using that. Yeah. So irrespective of configuration, safe Scrum is same. Yeah. So safe Scrum, the way Scrum Master operate, more or less same. You can have additional stakeholder. They will have more say in it, but ultimate working is more or less same.
Thank you very much. Thanks.
Good.
Got it.
Yeah.
Clear.
Great. So coming back, we can say, yes, we have figured it out. Our team backlog in our first level team backlog came as a PI planning meeting output. And we do our iteration planning meeting where we figure out what we have to do, and we create our iteration goal, and we create our iteration backlog. Now, iteration backlog is a lifespan of 2 weeks, yeah, the iteration duration. Yeah, we create for that duration, and we can say, okay, we are ready for our iteration work. Now, rest of the process is more or less same. You do team sync meeting. They used to call it daily stand-up. Now they started calling it team sync from March 2023 onwards. They brought some revision here. So we can say we do a team sync meeting, which is like your daily Scrum, to ensure we are doing inspect and adapt. One thing which is not clearly mentioned in this diagram is they are expected to be a team backlog refinement meeting here, yeah, which will be refining this team backlog. So the product owner, because in a PI planning meeting, it might not be, it is not possible, or it's not a good idea also to create acceptance criteria for all the user stories which are expected to done in this PI, because you may not have that much visibility, and the things as you do will get evolved. So product owner, team level product owner, is continuously spending time and refining that particular team backlog. So team backlog is continuously refined. And as a Scrum Master, I need to ensure the team backlog is also getting refined. So I need to take care of all the Scrum meetings. I need to take care of impediments which are coming and escalations which are coming, as I do in my general Scrum space. And I need to ensure that the PO level refinement is also happening. The another thing which is not explained very clearly here, that once in a week, me as a Scrum Master will also participate in a coach sync meeting. Now, it used to be called Scrum of Scrum, which is more easy to relate to, but nowadays they call it coach sync. So coach sync is a type of meeting where the super Scrum Master, you know about that guy, release train engineer, collect all the Scrum Masters and talk about, guys, how things are. Yeah. So we need to understand how things are happening. And if you have a specific impediments, if you have things, ideally you should be discussing it as soon as you discover an issue. But it's a common platform where each Scrum Master is talking about how things are happening in their team. You as a Scrum Master listening to others' update very, very carefully because somebody's update may impact you. Yeah. So that's an additional thing. As a normal Scrum Master, you are taking care of your Scrum work. But here, as a safe Scrum Master, on a weekly basis, you should be participating in Coach Sync meeting, which is a Scrum of Scrum in our old version word, same intent, where you need to make sure that there is a clear visibility about your teamwork. There is a clear visibility about the challenges your team is facing. So that's your additional responsibility. And you also need to ensure that whatever others are sharing, I am really understanding them and seeing if there is an impact on my team. And if there is, I need to raise it. I can take some technical people along if it is needed. No restriction that only Scrum Master can go. But yeah, that's I need to ensure that we do it. If I can do it myself, great. Else I take someone along with me. But that's a clear coordination and problem solving and transparency meeting. And I need to ensure I do effective communication, good stakeholder engagement, and joint problem solving there if things are getting stuck at a train level. Yeah. So applying the holistic thinking at a train level and ensuring that I'm supporting my release train engineer to make the whole train operate and run well is also my additional role, which I do as a part of Scrum of Scrum or a PO or a Coach Sync meeting. And I ensure my POs are also participating in their PO Sync meeting to have a clear understanding and collaboration with other product owners on the train. Yeah. So that's an additional thing not coming very clearly in the diagram, but as a Scrum Master role, I need to do that as well. Good. So inside the Scrum, more or less same like your typical Scrum. The additional thing is they have a recommended practice called team backlog refinement. Unlike Scrum, which keeps it open, you can do a meeting or you can do other way. But in a safe way, they are saying that it's good to do as a recommended practice of a meeting. So you need to ensure that is happening, not necessarily you facilitate that. And another additional thing is you need to make sure that continuously on a weekly basis or more frequently as you agreed at a train level, you are participating effectively to make sure that holistic view of a train is always visible. And that is something you need to do. Yeah. And in general, like transparency, maintaining your Kanban board, ensuring things are happening, developing people, those kind of things will remain as it is, as we do in our Scrum world. Yeah. So till here, there is a little bit more, and then we are more or less understand the role of a Scrum Master here. Now, iteration review is more or less the same, the way Scrum review happens. The only difference is I need to make sure that the as per definition of done of the team, we are having a good definition of done. So as a Scrum Master, I need to ensure build-in quality. The quality of the work is good enough so that it can be reviewed and used. Yeah, so that's something I need to ensure as a Scrum of iteration review person. I need to definitely facilitate the retrospective, which is the usual thing as we do in our typical Scrum as well. So I need to make sure the retrospective events are happening. So that all is matching. Now, another thing, which is not part of directly my 2 weeks iteration, but there is an additional thing which happens in a safe word, we call it system demo. Yeah? So probably you got an idea when we were looking at the safe way of operating. So here, when we are executing and when we are doing iteration review, so each team is doing their local iteration review. Yeah. We also want to have a working system is the only measurement of progress as an Agile manifesto statement principle. We want to have an integrated demonstration of work, which as a whole train we have done, which is like a reflection of our ART backlog also. So this is a special event, which is basically managed by release train engineer and product management. Yeah, those people are managing. But as a Scrum Master, I need to ensure that my team is participating well, and we are planning and doing things to support something called system demo. Now, in order to do that, I probably enforce, or like enforce is the wrong word, I facilitate continuous integration, frequent integration of the work amongst different Agile teams. If that frequent integration is not happening, then we may not be able to have a system demo at the end of a 2 weeks duration. And I need to ensure that we are really taking feedback in a team increment, which is an iteration review. And we are also taking feedback from our stakeholders, from respective people using these system demos also. And system demos is also a good opportunity for me to understand what is happening in other part of the train. So all Scrum Masters and product owner should have a common understanding of how train is operating. Scrum of Scrum is a good idea, but Scrum of Scrum is not based on working software. It is just talking. Yeah. But every 2 weeks, at least we should talk about where are we based on the concrete status of our backlog, our worked item, and that is called system demo. So we should have a frequent system demos which are happening here, and that thing is little bit also presented as an extension of Safe Scrum, that in a safe way of working, that thing will also keep happening. Yeah. Any question till here? So you understand the safe Scrum cycle. There is a one more piece left for a role of a Scrum Master, but this is something we learned. So inside the 2 weeks, typically more or less like the typical Scrum. Additional thing is that I need to do a continuous meeting and coordination with other Scrum Masters and other Scrum team. That's an additional thing. I need to facilitate the team level backlog refinement happening. That's the second thing. And third thing, I need to ensure that team increment demo and the system demos are done in a right way, at least from my team perspective. And we are taking feedback from both the things to improve our team backlog, our work for upcoming iterations in a given PI. And this is I am doing, and I am ensuring that I am applying system level thinking. So better understanding of the whole train work and ability to communicate and speak the language which can be understood by different stakeholders and different Scrum Master is something get added as an additional responsibility of the Scrum Master when they are operating as a big family Scrum Master rather than a small family Scrum Master. That's a safe way of working.
Hi, Saket.
Go ahead, please.
Thank you. So what if we are implementing Kanban in this, if we are not implementing Scrum?
So you can do that. Yeah, first thing is you can do that. And then you don't use Safe Scrum. Yeah.
Yeah.
Then you use what? Safe Kanban. Yeah. So there is a different click. Yeah, there is a different click. I can briefly explain. So there is a different click called Safe Kanban. And the idea here is some of the team on the train can use Kanban. And the idea of Safe Kanban is presented in this particular manner, briefly saying, and it is saying you may not follow the time boxing of 2 weeks. You may not follow sprint planning meeting or iteration planning meeting. You have maybe an ongoing, evolving execution using a Kanban board, and you may basically participate in a system demos. So the teams which are more supporting the other teams to move forward, yeah, are the usual one which work in a Kanban mode on the train, and they can stay away from Scrum ceremonies like iteration planning, iteration review. Retrospective could be at a different frequency rather than every 2 weeks. They can stay away from time boxing, but they still need to maintain a PI level time box. So they will participate in a system demos as per the need, and they will definitely participate in a PI planning meeting. Some part of the work will be predictable, which they will pick from a PI planning meeting. Remaining work will emerge as we are executing in the PI. Yeah.
Thank you.
Perfect,
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Anything else, anyone? Till here? Hopefully you are getting some idea. I know the Scaled Agile has a detailed program called Safe Scrum Master, and some of you might want to do that at some point in time. But the objective is you get a little feeling what this whole thing is about. Good. Let's move forward then, yeah? So I go back to my initial diagram. So what we have learned, you have learned what the Scrum Master is doing before PI planning meeting. You have learned what Scrum Master is doing during PI planning meeting. And you have learned what the Scrum Master is doing typical iterations. Yeah, typical iterations, which are 4. Now, what is left? What is the role of a Scrum Master during the innovation and planning iteration? Yeah, there is a one way you learn that the Scrum Master should facilitate readiness for upcoming PI planning meeting. That's a one activity. The another activity is here, we want to also have a big demo, and there is a kind of, you can say, iteration and review and retrospective, which is a joint thing. So where everyone, all 125 people are involved, and we are doing, let's saying, okay, let's give a big PI level system demo. Yeah. So this is called PI demo. All 125 people will be involved. And based on that, we also call something called Inspect and Adapt workshop, which is the demo is part of Inspect and Adapt. So there is a problem solving and retrospective meeting, which is additional to your team level retrospectives. So as a Scrum Master, I need to ensure during innovation and planning meeting, during the innovation and planning iteration, my team is spending good time to doing some kind of improvement ideas. I need to spend enough time with other Scrum Masters in a problem-solving workshop so that we can resolve some of the common problems which we are facing at a train level. I need to ensure that we support the big demo which is happening for the whole PI. So whole PI or for a whole train, we are doing a system level, PI level system demo. I need to participate in that. So ensuring my team is making best use of innovation and planning iteration by way of doing improvements and doing planning, ensuring that I am spending good time to reflect and ensure a good inspect and adapt at a train level is the additional thing I need to do during innovation and planning iteration. We already spoke about readiness for PI planning meeting, like projecting the velocity, taking care of some of the measurements, ensuring that we have a visibility about how the previous PI went, and using all this information and the data with the team to forecast how should we plan our upcoming PI. So we should be ready before we go for a PI planning meeting. So that's the final part of it. Now this thing, we can map back to Scaled Agile way of presenting role of a safe Scrum Master. So this is how Scaled Agile promotes it. And they are saying these are the 5 core activities the Scrum Master is expected to do in a safe way of working. Facilitate PI planning meeting. So hopefully you get it. Getting my teams ready for PI planning meeting. Ensuring when we are doing breakout sessions, my team is doing the right justice to the amount of planning which they are expected to do. So I do that. Supporting iteration execution. So facilitating various iteration ceremonies if needed, or the team can facilitate if I develop them. Ensuring continuous transparency. I need to do that. I need to ensure the dependencies and other impediments, if they come in between, I resolve that. So I work as a support servant leader in order to support my 2 weeks iteration execution that I do. Improve flow. Improve flow is mainly about retrospectives and improving continuously. So I participate, I run iteration retrospective well. I participate in a system level, improving ART performance also. So I ensure my team level problems are getting resolved faster. I ensure my team is doing enough attention to identify bottlenecks and improving on a regular basis so that we are improving continuously. So that's an improved flow. Resolving the bottlenecks, resolving the dependencies, and continuously supporting so the work keeps moving. That's the role of a Scrum Master. ART level performance improvement we spoke about. So ensuring that during the innovation and planning iteration, I ensure my teams are participating well in an inspect and adapt event. I participate well with other Scrum Masters and Scrum team to find out train level improvements. And I also do a continuous coach sync meetings, or the Scrum of Scrum kind of thing, to ensure that during the PI also we are improving continuously at a train level. So I support the train level work, and I ensure my team level bottlenecks are taken care. Now, this one we have not spoken very explicitly, but this is your typical Scrum Master role. So here we are also expecting, as a Scrum Master, you should be growing your team. You should be teaching them, mentoring them, helping them to become better in their work, helping them to improve their soft skills, and helping them to come up with more and more better in the self-organizing space so that they can become a better performer, they can become a high-performing team. So continuously developing people, supporting them as a typical leadership role nowadays. I think Scrum Master should do it, project manager should do it, anyone who is leading the team should do it. And Scrape is saying, since you are the servant leader, you should be spending good time in growing your team members by way of helping them, getting better training, improving their skills, giving them sufficient freedom, engaging them in their planning activity, and ensuring that they have a big picture, the big vision clear about the whole work, helping them in coming up with their own working agreement and operating out of it so that they can become a high-performing team. So that's like a summarization of the role of Scrum Master in safe way of working. This is what I wanted to cover from my side in an hour or so. But if you have any questions, we can explore. We reserve the time till 1.5 hours, but that's the process I wanted to follow. Okay, so any query, comment about this? And then we can briefly talk about if you have interest in a Safe Scrum Master certification as well, because some of you may want to know how it operates and what it covers, etc., etc. So I can show you from a Scaled Agile website. So if someone is more interested in knowing the role of a Scrum Master, so there is a one popular certificate which is called Leading Safe, which is the most popular certificate of safe way of working, because it gives you a comprehensive overview of Scaled Agile Framework. So it tells you about all the possible safe configuration as well. But then there is a role-specific program which is called Safe Scrum Master. It does not get into explaining you what is safe portfolio, what is large solution and all, but it focuses on how the Scrum Master operate in a safe way of working. Yeah, so it covers that. And it has a lessons, I can say, that we can focus on specific included. So it is main about what is a PI planning meeting, what is the role of Scrum Master in a PI planning meeting, we learn about it. More or less, whatever I have explained, yeah, that get covered in 16 hours. Yeah, that's the whole thing. So you come to know about the preparation for ART backlog, you come to know about readiness for PI planning meeting, how the Scrum Master prepares, supports PI planning meeting. Then we get into ART level work, we learn about team events, how do we run iterations, but we get into detail. We learn about what is user story, how to estimate them, what is another type of work item we call enabler story. So we learn about them. How do you prioritize ART backlog? How do you prioritize team level backlog? So we talk about that. What kind of patterns and anti-patterns which may occur in a various meetings like iteration planning meeting, reviews meeting, system demos, we talk about that. So those little more drill down into each and every event, and also focusing on some kind of soft behaviors which Scrum Master should develop as a servant leader. And by doing the class, you get qualified to give the exam. They don't allow you to give the exam directly without taking the class. So it's not like that I can study and give the exam myself. They don't allow it. This is how their process is. So you need to attend the certified class. And once that is done, you will get an access to give the exam. You give the exam and get certified. Yeah. So that's the process of Safe Scrum Master certification.
Hi, Saket. So what's the difference between Safe Scrum Master and Safe Advanced Scrum Master certification?
Yeah, so I wrote a little article about that recently, but in a simple word, Safe Advanced Scrum Master assume that you know basics of these meetings. So it is not going to teach you what do you do in iteration planning and all in detail. Rather, it focuses on telling you the foundational ideas behind various things in SAFe. So additional content which get covered there is a SAFe principles. Yeah. So you spend around 2.5 hours learning about various SAFe principles. There are 10, and you learn how Scrum Master should use those principles in their regular execution. That becomes one focus area. The another focus area, this Safe Scrum Master class doesn't get into too much into high performing team space. So that will, the Safe Advanced Scrum Master will focus on coaching, mentoring, and saying you need to be ready to coach your team so that they become high performing. The Safe Scrum Advanced Scrum Master also gets into a little bit more conversation related to patterns and anti-patterns for various events. Yeah. So there is an overlap. The Safe Scrum Master tells you just the Scrum Master role. Safe Advanced Scrum Master tells you the abstract ideas behind principles. I would say around 30-40% content is same. The additional content is anti-patterns, high-performing team, and the 10 principles. We do have a videos of 10 principles and all. That's there. Another important thing you need to keep in mind, the renewal fee for Safe Advanced Scrum Master is $295 and Safe Scrum Master is $195. So there is a little expensive to maintain Safe Advanced Scrum Master. The questions are also different. I think the Safe Scrum Master has a 45 questions and Safe Advanced Scrum Master, I guess, has a 60 questions. So there is a little bit rigor change in case of Safe Scrum Master and Advanced Scrum Master class. So, but now the type of people who does Safe Advanced Scrum Master is positioned for people who are planning to get into release train engineer job, next level job. So you are saying you are doing Scrum Master for a while. Now you want to do next work. That is where you go for Safe Advanced Scrum Master class. So Safe Advanced Scrum Master, this is my article. Yes, it has a 60 questions. It has a 120 minutes. The Safe Scrum Master has a 45 questions and 90 minutes. And they have a $295 as a renewal fee. Yeah, that's there. But yeah. So if you target the next level role, then the Scrum Master, and you see that job descriptions are specifically asking for a Safe Scrum Advanced Scrum Master job certification, then you do Safe Advanced Scrum Master. If you are targeting a Scrum Master job, then if you already have a CSM and you are very good with the Scrum thing, you can choose. You may do Leading Safe or you may do Safe Scrum Master. Advanced Scrum Master should be done after working a little bit in a safe environment. That's the recommendation from Scaled Agile as well. Yeah, that's things. Great. Anything else? Anyone before we close for today? Yeah. So this is a link. Yeah, I can share in
Saket,
the chat.
I
Yeah.
have a question.
Please, please.
So, in case of Scrum Aligned certifications, we, besides renewing the certification, in exchange of a fee every 2 years, we also have to go through the Scrum educational points. So, is it
SEUs,
the
yeah.
same? Yeah, SEOs. So, is it the same practice that is applicable for SAFE?
As of now, no. So they are, as of now, only asking for a fee. At some point in time, they may come with the educational unit, but as of now, it is just a fee.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
And it's an annual fee. Unlike once in a 2 years, it's annual fee.
Okay. Thanks.
The interesting thing is they give you an access to a content called Safe Studio, which they are continuously keep maintaining. They keep putting content, templates, videos there. And their business model is they are saying, we are giving you access to our Safe Studio annually. And once you have access, whatever Safe certification you have, they will get renewed. So say if I do Safe Scrum Master, if I do Leading Safe, if I do Safe POPM, and I continuously keep maintaining my access to Safe Studio by paying $195, then I have all my 3 certificates renewed, and I also have my content available for my learning. So they want little high commitment. Yeah, that's how their business model is. So it's not a renewal of individual certificate, it's a renewal of one level of certificate. But if you do Safe Advanced Scrum Master, then your renewal frequency, your money will be more, because they give you a little advanced content also in a Safe Studio. They are saying you are at a next level, so you better pay $295, and that will maintain all your Safe certification till Safe Advanced Scrum Master. And yeah, so that's the process they have. Great. Yeah, thank you. Anything else, anyone, before I conclude? Yeah. If you have any follow-up query, definitely you can touch base with us. eyesandbridge.com is a place to go. And we have our other social channels as well, YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram. So there is also a good way to connect.
Can we also ask questions on WhatsApp to you, Saket?
So
Is there any
once,
chance?
yeah, we do have, once you enroll in the class, then we create a WhatsApp group, but open channel directly for Q&A as of now, not for WhatsApp. Yeah, but we have other medias. Yeah. Email is
Okay.
also good. You can drop me an email. Yeah, that's also possible.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Saket. Thank you for
Thank
the
you.
insightful session. Appreciate it.
Thank you everyone for participating. Yeah, it's wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. That was very useful.
you.
And see you on Saturday on the.
Yeah, see you this Saturday. Yeah. Great. See you. Bye everyone. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.